Stay geeked out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining Dealcasters Live. We're excited today. We have a fantastic guest that's going to give you tons of actionable items to help grow your email list, your influence, and anything that you've got as an entrepreneur. So Amazon says we're live there. So welcome to Dealcasters. Let's roll.
Thanks for having me on, guys. This is awesome. I love gear, love talking all about it. So yeah, this is going to be really fun.
I'm so excited. You guys are, everybody please share this out. Hit that like button. Follow these guys.
When you collaborate, you're building community. So there's so many things you can do for a business with a podcast, for sure.
Yeah, I love that.
How's it going?
Who was talking to you, Siri? I said the A lady. Ooh, Siri's getting frosty because I'm talking to the A people over here. And she's like,
Should I eat this?
Yes.
Because people really want that kind of conversation and relationship.
Yeah, and your show won't be boring.
Right?
Oh my God, I love you guys. Chris, you're just amazing. Jim, so are you. You guys are the best hosts ever, I think.
Just guy.
Beautiful people of planet Earth, welcome to Dealcasters Live. My name is Chris Stone. I'm at Cast Ahead, and the gentleman on the right side of your screen doing marketing the Marine Corps way, Lieutenant Colonel Jim Fuse. How are we doing today, man?
Well, Chris, I'm extra excited because we're doing a mad scientist experiment, and it is working. Not only are we live on all the tubes, as we like to say, but we're actually live on Substack.
We have another tube. We have another tube to stick our content in. That's right. And Substack, Jim, I know you're leaning in big time. Another friend of ours that's a friend of the show as well, Tanya Smith, is as well as James Hicks and some other great content creators are utilizing Substack. And Ross Brand, of course, was I feel like he was somewhat first in as it relates to live video on that platform. And so if you're curious about what's going on Substack, or you're over there on Substack, let Jim Fuse know that you're here and go over there. But as you know, Jim, where we really like to be, and hopefully we're still on there because we're not talking about their platform. No, I'm kidding. Is on Amazon. We are live on Amazon, and why wouldn't you want to be over there? Because the guest that we're speaking to today has given us some of his favorite items that he uses day to day, including an item that he is responsible for, and we're going to get to our guest here in a second. But if you're on any other platform besides Amazon, or maybe you're seeing this and you want to go over to Amazon, we make it easy for you. All you got to do is type in dealcasters.live into your browser. It's going to open. It's going to open the app on your browser or on your mobile device, and it'll take you right here where we have the amazing Paul Gowder here today, Jim. I'm stoked because our friend Jeff C., who is also a friend of the show, been on the show a number of times, introduced us to Paul, and he mentioned in passing, hey, you guys really need to touch base with Paul. We met him at PodFest, and then we found out just how impactful that community is. Jim, I know you're in a mastermind with Paul as well, I believe, and
yes.
We're all just big fans of his content, and I'm really stoked to get into it. Jim, I know he's impacted you as well in your journey. So before we introduce him, a few words about Paul.
Well, I mean, Paul is an amazing human being. I mean, what he's doing for the Native American community, what he's doing for content creators. I mean, the stuff he teaches you about email, like you said, right? He's now the silver button guy, and it's funny, right? Because he's got so many email subscribers, something we couldn't even imagine. He's like, well, what do I do about my 100,000 subscribers if I want to move them somewhere else? It's like, well, that's
Nice problem to have.
nice
right?
problem to have. But he's
Right.
also so here's a couple little fun facts about Paul Gowder that you may not know, and I just found this out the other day. He is a disc golfer, and
Okay.
he's also, as we know, a bourbon aficionado. So
I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming.
yeah.
Why
So
did
I
I know that
mean,
was coming?
what can you say bad about the guy at this point?
You
I mean,
can't. So let's just go ahead and introduce this man. We're pumped to introduce you to the amazing Paul Gowder, the genius behind powwows.com, who has grown a massive online community while still making time for 42 Disney trips with his daughter. Paul's about to drop some serious wisdom on building a business that serves your life, not the other way around. So get ready to chop it up with our friend Paul Gowder. Welcome aboard, Paul, to Dealcasters.
Oh, thanks, guys. I really appreciate being on seeing the introduction and all those other faces, and just to be among them. Hey, I appreciate it. I'm honored. This is
Yeah,
fun.
man, we're gonna put you on that wall. We're definitely gonna put you on that wall. So speaking of putting things on the wall, sir, and Jim, referenced that a little bit. Congratulations on being able to put that big silver button on your wall. You got it handy that you maybe.
Yeah, right.
There. Oh,
there.
I can see it. There it is. There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. And so, I wanted to sort of set the table for our viewers and for our listeners because, like I said, Jeff C. mentioned you and mentioned powwows.com and said, you guys won't believe what a massive community that Paul has curated and founded. And I was like, okay, yeah. And I heard that, right? And I'm thinking, yeah, well, let's see. He's got a couple thousand here. He got maybe a couple thousand here. So if you would indulge me, sir, I'm going to set the table with our viewers and listeners who,
All right.
maybe don't know what you're responsible for and what an actual big deal that this is. So powwows.com, by the numbers, it's been 25 plus years
Yes.
since you founded this. It is North America's largest Native American digital hub. Live streaming events like the Gathering of the Nations, which has 4 million viewers. You just, again, we mentioned 100,000 YouTube subscribers for the silver button. Congrats again on that plaque. 30 million plus views globally, covering 161 different countries. And now you're approaching 1 million social media followers across the platforms that you've got. That's massive. And that's just incredible. And I know, Paul, that you've probably been on a number of podcasts, and people are asking, okay, what's the secret? Like spill the beans, right, or spill the tea, or whatever that is. And I know there's really no easy button, right? There's no sort of cheat code to all of this, and building what's really become like a cultural powerhouse online. Pretty much. But as we start to sort of unpack this thing, maybe. Let's start with maybe some lessons that you've learned along the way, because I think a lot of times when people, maybe they have a couple hundred in their community, maybe they only have like 20 or 30, and they're like, oh, this just feels like a slog, right? And this feels like, and I think sometimes people don't realize, even people like yourself that have built such massive communities, had to go through some mistakes and learnings along the way in order to succeed to the level that you've had. Anything that you could share with us?
Yeah, there's an easy button. You just do a really cool video on TikTok. You do a little cool dance, and that's it. You go
Wow.
viral overnight, and
Awesome.
that's it.
Show's
Yeah,
over.
That's all right. No, the first thing I think people need to understand, especially in this day of fast social media growth, is that it's not about being an overnight success. For me, it really is a long story. It took years to get here, but it was building that community consistently, continuing to do the things that serve your community, continuing to be present in your community, creating new things or new features that help the community, right? As long as you're community focused, I always say you need to think community first and just keep doing that there's no easy button for overnight success, but that's not what we're after, right? Because overnight success can go away overnight as well. So
Yeah.
for me, it's just been a long, long haul, and you just keep growing.
Yeah. And, we touched it on the introduction, and the thing that I am, it takes a guy to get to, I just turned 55 this week, by the way. But
Happy
when I
birthday.
was 25
He's
and
a
I
young
didn't have a
man.
family, right?
Right.
Maybe I was just starting a family, and I thought that, building wealth, or building, having a job and providing for your family and all of those things was important. And I don't want to diminish that for those but eventually, the older you get, the more you realize the amount of money isn't necessarily as great as being able to spend time with what's most important. Which in your case, it's very clear. As much passion as you have around powwows, as much passion as you have around the business that you built, which powwows is also a part of, is your family, and that's clear. And that is, it's taken a while for me to learn that. So maybe what would you suggest for people that are in that twist of like, hey, I've got a family, but I've got to provide for them, and being an entrepreneur requires time and all of those things. What are some of the ways that you've been able to integrate your family into this and be able to remain the best father and husband that you can be?
Ooh, there's a lot there. I mean, first, when I started powwows.com, I never really intended this to be a business. It was
Okay.
just a way of playing on the web, building HTML pages, just experimenting. But it was the community that started growing, and my wife and I actually started dating the same year I kind of started building the website. So she's been along for the journey the whole way. I tell people she's she's the Jiminy Cricket of powwows.com. She's the voice on my shoulder that helps me make decisions and or tells me stop doing something that's stupid. But I think but that's really important, is your family may not be like a part of your business, but they need to be on the journey with you. And as long as you have that and you have those communications, there's going to be times when it's tough. I can remember you talking about the Disney trips. I can remember one in particular. My daughter was probably 7 or 8 or something like that. It was maybe our third trip to Disney. We were staying at the Wilderness Lodge, and I had something major crash on the website, and we were just leaving the room for the day. And I was like, okay, you guys go down to the lobby, get something to eat. I'll be down in 10 minutes, and then we'll go get our day started. And 10 minutes turns into an hour. An hour turns into a phone call of, hey, look, guys, I'm sorry. It's going to be a few minutes. That was it was very stressful for me, because I know I'm disappointing the wife, the daughter,
Yeah.
but the site's down. You got to fix it. So, but those are the things that, as long as you have that communication, you're going to have times when things go wrong. And that was a tense day, because it did take away from family time. But as long as you have those relationships, it does make it easier. For me, the other part of that was, I've only been full-time with powwows.com for about 3 years. I worked in state government for South Carolina for 26 years.
Okay.
So for me, this was a side hustle until just recently. And doing all those extra hours, and that's kind of where the travel came from, is like, if we're going to do this as a family, right? If we're going to make these sacrifices, if I'm going to work nights and weekends and, take my lunch hour and do the extra work, right? If I'm going to do all of that, why are we doing this? And it wasn't necessarily to, build wealth and to, whatever. It's okay, if we're going to do these, because it wasn't, at the time, it wasn't just powwows.com. I had all kinds of side hustles, right? Because, 15 years ago, powwows.com wasn't making a whole lot of money. We're still not, I'm not Pat Flynn or anything, but, right. But, it was like, if we're going to do all this extra work, why are we doing it? And we said early on, let's prioritize family. Let's prioritize trips, make experiences, create memories. And so it makes those nights and weekends more worth it. And when we do these family trips, we're going to, as much as possible, make those cuts. And like, we're on vacation, right? Unfortunately now with the internet, and it's on ships, and sometimes it's a little harder nowadays to cut off. It used to be we could get on a cruise ship and there was no internet, so it was definitely a break. But yeah, those are the kind of things that we did early on as a family is have those conversations, set the expectations, and then decide as a family is like, okay, here's why we're doing this. And so it makes it easier when you do have to make those sacrifices.
I love that you talked about your wife being in the Jiminy Cricket, and I immediately, my mind knows exactly what you're talking about on your shoulder. And
Yeah.
I think it's important for those that are listening and watching at this point that, we're, a little bit longer in the tooth than a number of people who are, really digging deep into YouTube and podcasting and, maybe a side hustle, right? But you just, it's, you never look back at things and go, boy, I really wished I had, built another 2,000 people on my email list. You look back and say, man, I really missed that opportunity when my daughter was doing this, this, and this, and this. And as fathers, as mothers, as anyone who is a part of partnerships, has families. It's so important to remain grounded in that, and it's not easy. It certainly is not easy. And I've for years worked at Sony, and I got tied into that until everybody around me in Atlanta got laid off, and I was the only person left. And they were like, "You're coming to New York," and I said, "You know what? If I do that, that's going to put such a strain on my family." And I was able to stay aboard for as long as I could until I said, "You know what? I'm gonna start another business," and that is so important because I'd never missed a soccer match, a play, like all of those things. Your daughter, who you took to Disney 42 times, will remember that. And so let's talk about that because and is that 42 times while you're building this thriving business. Maybe there's a framework in there, but how did you do that? Because you do have a passion, obviously, for the park and that, but still doing that stuff. 42? How many times a year is that? I'm not good at math.
There was one year where I think we went 9 times. So what we did, because I work state government, I had most of the same holidays as my daughter's school, right? So President's Day, Labor Day, all those little 3-day weekends, we would just get in the car and head down. We had annual passes, and so it made those little 4-night trips or 3-night trips, sometimes 2-night trips. It made those easier because we already had the passes, and that's what we did. It was, and especially early on in my daughter's life when my wife and I, we were working a lot of side hustles, but we weren't making a whole lot of money. So we could, a 1 day or 2 days in the park was a lot easier for us to afford than going for a long vacation. And we worked up to do more things, but that's what it was. It was, what can we do this weekend, to make the most of the time we have? And we would do that. We did other things too. We went to the mountains and, went to the beach or, explored other places. But and at some point in late middle school, early high school, my daughter had I think she counted up and she had 20 something trips. And she's like, I really want to have at least 40 trips before I graduate high school. All right.
Awesome.
Well, there's the goal. Let's go. Yeah, let's go.
Oh man, that's amazing. Jim, I know you had a question, man.
Yeah. So Paul, I mean, what you've done is amazing. And so I guess part of my question goes to, I know you live stream these powwows. Now,
Right.
Was that your background? Were you a video guy, or is this like me and Chrissy, like, hey, I want to learn how to do this? And then second, what did you find were some of the biggest challenges? Because, from what I understand, when you're doing these powwows, it's not like you're down at the Cobb Galleria. You're like out in some very remote places at times. What are some of the things that you've learned? And I guess I'm sure that's been right. You got better the second time and the third time and things like that. Tell us about that story.
So I had no video experience. I'm a photographer, old school. I shot Minolta cameras in middle school, high school, right? So no video experience. We started, our first live stream was in 2004. And it was, I actually had a part of the communities, a mother-daughter called me. They were very active on our forums back then. And they called like, hey, look, we go to a lot of rodeos out here in Oklahoma, and they're starting to do this live streaming thing. And it was a little tiny box of videos remember what the resolution, but it was terrible. She's like, I think you could do that, right? You could stream something. I was like, I have no idea if I could or not. They're like, well, we're in charge of a powwow this week, coming up in June. If we fly you out, can you come out and stream it? I was like, sure, okay. And I spent the next 6 weeks trying to figure out exactly how I would do that. And back, in 2004, I literally had to build my own streaming servers. At least dedicated servers, and installed Windows Media Player and server. And yeah, it was very complicated, running like FireWire cameras into the laptop. Crazy setups back then. And yeah, now we're able to, we've got Starlink, so we are able to stream out in fields. It's in places we powwow now. They have great internet. They have infrastructure for it. But in the beginning, I mean, we would show up places and they would have no idea what we were even talking about, let alone how to actually watch the video. So it's been really fun to see how it's grown over time. And yeah, our big live stream coming up for Gathering Nations will be the last weekend in April. It is the biggest powwow of the year. They get somewhere around 100,000 people in person,
Nice.
3,500. So if you're out there and want to watch something just incredible, Gathering of Nations weekend is the powwow to watch.
Yeah, and for those of you that are watching, we have the 2024 Gathering of Nations up on the screen, and the YouTube channel is powwows.com. And of course, powwows.com is the central location for that, and all the social media and everything else. I'm curious, again, now we're getting into the nerd stuff, right? So... Yeah. When now are you going to each one of those? Do you have a team of people that are there on site? Like how does that work from the back end perspective? Because I've seen you like live from your location there in South Carolina, right. But it's being piped in from wherever else that it's. Do you have a team of folks that you work with?
All of the above. So.
Okay.
I do a live show here from my office each week on Thursday nights. As far as the powwows go, so I have myself, and then I have two teams that travel. We have a third that he's said he might be stepping away, but it looks like he's coming back. But yeah, we have some teams, and they go out and do some of the live streams. And sometimes I'll go with them now, sometimes not. When I was working full time, it was just me going to all these powwows, and literally I had a good relationship with the people there in my office, and they would let me take leave. And then I ran out of leave, and they started letting me take leave without pay. For years, that's what I did. And I would save my vacation so that we could actually take those Disney trips. So I would just not get paid for the week I was gone for falls. So now what we do is, and then the other thing, before I get to the teams, the other thing we do work with several powwows, there's maybe 4 a year that have their own team. One of them, like the Seminole tribe in Florida, they own Hard Rock. And so they have a pretty big production team down there at the Hard Rock Casino in Hollywood, Florida. So they just call us up and say, hey, we're going to produce this. And so I use Restream to then pick up their video feed and send it out to all of our channels. So we have a few powwows, maybe 4 each year that do it that way. But yeah, most of the time we're sending a team out and we're doing 4 camera shoots, sometimes 6 PTZ cameras. We have been running them in, if you get really geeky, we have been running them into a Livestream HD51 streaming box. Now we've gone all NDI, so we're getting rid of that because that box had a whole bunch of inputs where we could run SDI or HDMI ends. Now we're all NDI, so we're changing that box. We don't have to carry around a big 20-pound server anymore, which is a lot of fun on a plane. So we've switched over to all NDI, all PTZ. And it makes it a whole lot easier for us, and that's kind of how we do it now.
So, Paul, with the NDI, because maybe some of our audience isn't familiar with that term, what exactly is NDI? Is it giving you like wireless cameras, and what kind of range do you have? And maybe do you run into any challenges where, like, because you're in a sense using something wireless, the connection could be a challenge?
So we're not going the wireless NDI route. We're going Ethernet. So it allows us to put a camera, 300-400 feet away, sometimes using Cat6 cabling. It's a whole lot easier than carrying a big, heavy HDMI or SDI cable. But we're able to now, and it's really cool because some of these facilities already have an infrastructure of Cat6. And so we're able to plug into their infrastructure and then feed that in, which is really cool. We've even been in some arenas where they already have PTZs wired up in in the rafters and things, and they just let us pull in their NDI cameras. But yeah, it's basically running on a network, and so we're able to also, the other really great thing for us, again, being in sometimes outdoor or different setups, the NDI cameras, we're able to power them through Ethernet, so we don't have to run extension cords and power plugs and keep up with all that stuff too. So it makes us a lot more flexible, and we can get our cameras further out into the arenas and get better shots and better angles now.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm sitting here pulling up this stuff, and I'm like, the footage is incredible. Like, it's not, and it's not just the quality, but quantitatively, going back and seeing this stuff, it's like my squirrel brain is just going nuts right here. Like, how on earth you can see some of the tech folks, in the shots, kind of walking around. So you've got the folks mobile, kind of like trying to get on the ground shots, and then you've got some wide shots. There's a lot of planning that goes into this.
Yeah, let me tell you, Gathering Nations is a whole different animal than what we normally do.
Okay.
They are a huge operation, and we partner with them to do the live stream. We're very fortunate when we roll in there, they already have a full production team running the cameras and audio. And we're talking, they probably have 40 people on that team that's doing all of that. Wow. And we take their footage and stream it. That is not our typical setup. Like I said, we're using PTZ cameras mounted in 4 to 6 locations in the arena. This is what our powwows look like when we're streaming. Gathering Nations, these guys, they're literally running it out to a production truck, full TV movie production quality cameras, but they're running it out to a truck. They have a director on the headset telling the cameramen what shots to get. That is very, very high level production. Got
it. So okay, so now my squirrel brain is maybe back to center, as much as it could be. Okay, so you're streaming these things, and people can go on YouTube and they're live, right? But or maybe they go to your site, right, and then they could do that. So there's something we haven't really spoken about in depth is that there's a massive community besides just, the Native American community, but there's a massive community that was built around, not, maybe the actual broadcasts are one of the cornerstones or centerpieces of this, but this community has not, you've mined this entire thing. There's email lists. There's you can go and find out if there's a powwow near you on the website. Like, what other things besides just this broadcast have you done to help build this community to where it's at?
In the early days, we were running on vBulletin. If you guys remember vBulletin, my friend Lou Mongello and I, we will sometimes sit around and reminisce about the old days of vBulletin forums and how great they were. And we really wish Facebook groups would run like that. Over the years, I've always been community first. So first it was the forums, because when I built those first few pages about powwows, it was people asking, hey, we want to be able to talk to each other. We want to be able to, share powwow information, all that. So we built the forums. So it's been over the years of what else can we provide? Probably the most, next to our live streams, the most popular thing we have is we have a calendar of powwows across the United States and Canada. But pre-COVID, we were getting about 1,200 powwows a year listed. We're not quite back to those numbers yet.
Oh, okay.
Most of them have come back, but not all have come back. So, but yeah, we're probably the main calendar. People share them on Facebook and things like that, but we are the one repository that kind of has the comprehensive list of all the powwows. And so you can go on our calendar and search by state or date. You can even go, like if you're in Texas, you can just go powwows.com/Texas. It'll take you right to all the powwows in Texas. That's probably our number one resource other than live streams. And then we also do articles and we publish some resources, things like that as well.
Very cool. Very cool. So we're going to talk about Paul Gowder a little bit, and powwows is woven into the DNA of all of this for sure. But now, or not now, but for a while now, you're taking these learnings and applying this going forward to other folks and entrepreneurs who want to build this, right?
Yes, it is. I'm still feel like I'm somewhat new in this world. Again, going back to my friend Lou Mangello, he told me years ago that I had something valuable to say. I still doubt him sometimes, but yeah. So I'm trying to help people who, especially people who feel stuck and don't feel like their community is growing, or they don't feel like their email list is actually doing what they want it to do. So I'm helping people use community to continue to level up their business.
And how much of that is centered around email? Because I'm not going to make you share your numbers. I'm sure it's massive in terms of the size of your email list. But I mean, how someone hasn't. We all know we have to build outside of rented land, right? We're going live on all these places, and now we're going live on Substack, and Joe Dexter, Go Lions Go, is over there as we see. And that's great, but all of these platforms are rented, right? Facebook just announced that their live streams are only going to last for 30 days, and that's a reminder, I think, to everyone, right? That we have to be, especially entrepreneurs, especially for someone who's doing what Jim and I and you, Paul, are doing. You have this land that you own, so to speak, with powwows, and email is a massive component of that. And so how would you maybe start with someone who's starting from square one, that's like, I know I need to build my email list. I know I'm serving people, and maybe I have a little bit of a community here. I'm not a good writer, or I don't have sort of the building blocks to create, and I'm not talking like which email platform, whether it's Kit or MailChimp or anything. Like, I'm talking about like actually creating a plan, right? That and developing something, because I think a lot of times, sometimes people feel like they have to create something new and innovative when they create sort of an email. So how would you work with someone who is just kind of starting out, has a little bit of a community, has a voice, knows who they're serving, and wants to develop that email list?
For powwows.com, email is really the heart of the community. Yes, we have a Facebook group. Yes, we have a Facebook page and all this stuff. But for me, email is where I'm able to communicate, have those one-on-one conversations. With we have 1.1 million followers on Facebook. When I put a message out there, I have no idea how many people are going to see it. When I send an email, I know that I have 100,000 subscribers. They're all going to see it. Not promotions and all the other tabs or whatever, spam folders. But I know that my email is going to get to 100,000 inboxes. And I am able to talk in my emails. I make them very personal. I tell stories. I talk like I'm talking to a friend. I try to not make it like a brand or somebody just shouting messages at you. I'm not Amazon, just coming out with all these pictures and images. My emails, I try to make them simple, a few images, text. But for somebody just starting out, email can be overwhelming, and you can make email super complicated. Where I like to start with is, let's figure out what it is you can offer. And it doesn't have to be new. It just has to be, what is your unique perspective on your topic, right? And so for powwows.com, one of the things that I started early on is kind of our email opt-in, our lead magnet, if people like to use that term, is we have our powwow calendar, right? So my offer to get people on the email list is, hey, look, I will send you updates weekly about powwows so that you don't miss out on any that are happening in your state. I will help you find them. All you have to do is subscribe, powwows.com/powwows near me. That is your offer. You don't have to build some complicated ebook or this fancy PDF. What is it that you can deliver? And then on your first email, let's not worry about what we're going to send each week and worry about these, all these future emails. Let's build out a way to deliver on that promise that you just made of sending them powwow updates. Let's write a 2 or 3 email series, and we'll use all the other platforms or whatever, however you're going to decide, right? Kit. And we'll automate that inside of Kit, and we'll deliver that message. That's the first thing you need to do in email. Let's figure out what your offer is. Let's write the emails that deliver on that offer. and kind of introduce you to your audience and tell your audience how you're going to help them. And the rest we can worry about later. But that's the first thing we do in email.
I love that you said start with the offer, because I think that is a huge stumbling block for people. They're afraid to make the offer because they have this like, are they even going to want this? Like, and they're afraid to say, we're giving you this. It helps you do this, and you're talking about leading with that. And I think that develops that mindset of I'm gonna make sure I'm serving this person. It doesn't. Not every email has to solve the and create world peace, right? Where and give you a $10,000 worth of value. Not everything. Sometimes I think the conversational stuff lets you just kind of reconnect with everybody, and that alone helps build your community. I feel like Jeff C., who's a mutual friend of ours, he'd probably come up a few other times during the course of this conversation. I know when I get an email from Jeff that he has crafted that himself. Now, is AI involved in it? Maybe he has some sort of conversation with it, and then that gives him an idea or something like that. But when I see it, I'm reading Jeff C's thoughts. It's not. I don't feel like I'm getting funnel pounded with rocket emojis and words like delve that I know Jeff would never say on purpose, right? So I love that you went there as well. And so let me ask you this. So when you put together those emails, on average, how long does it take you to craft one of those?
Ooh, that's a good question. It depends, right? So you were showing my offer for what to expect at your first powwow, which is another email opt-in I have for people who are kind of anxious or don't want to go to a powwow but not sure what to expect. That's probably, I can't remember exactly. I think that's a 10 or 12 email series. So that one, the initial writing probably took me a few hours. But here's the thing: it is if you get it wrong or if you don't like it, these things aren't set in stone because we're not making a PDF. We're not making some kind of ebook. We're putting all of this in text in email. So if we want to change it later on, it's okay. I would prefer to get my first attempt out there. I'm not quite as far as move fast and break things with Facebook, but I'm also, let's not worry about being perfect. Let's get good value out there and start delivering on that promise. And we can hone it in later. We can add more emails later. Let's at least get that going. And so they take me a little while to write, but it's that, it's time ahead. And then you get the time back on the end because once you build that system, it continues to work for you. And then let me give you another example. On paulgowder.com, I have a video on the tools I use to grow my email list. And instead of putting it, I do have a couple of emails that talk about it, but the primary source of giving that information is a YouTube video. So if you go to paulgowder.com/email tools, that'll get you to sign up to my email. But then what I'm going to deliver is a YouTube video. And, we're talking to guys here. I hope most people watching are probably in video or have a podcast or something and feel a little more comfortable delivering this way. You can still incorporate that into your email delivery and executing on that promise of whatever that offer is. So you can add video in here. I think that's a really great way to personalize this stuff. And it's just your unique taste. If somebody's coming to your website or your social media, they're not wanting to hear from, let's go to Pat Flynn. They don't want Pat Flynn's take on it. They came to you. They want your unique background, your story, your whatever makes you you. They want your take on it. So give it to them.
Yeah, Paul, and we've talked about this some in the mastermind, and it's definitely been eye-opening for me. But, could you talk to us about welcome sequences? Because I think that's the other thing. It's like, oh my gosh, I got Chris to sign up for my email list. Now what? And I think it's that one of those things that we've talked about. It's like we overcomplicate it. So
yes,
could you tell us, what are your recommendations to people with the welcome sequence?
So again, I'll go back to the first thing I wanted people to focus on when they're building their email and starting out is, what is your offer? Let's deliver on that offer. And 2 or 3 emails on that. And that is, here here's the value. I'm giving you what I promised you. The second and third email are going to be a little more of, here's how I can help you, right? After they finish that is where I like to take them into the full out welcome sequence. And what I think is really cool, if you build a welcome sequence, you can have multiple offers that then feed into one welcome sequence. But let's not make it too complex, and let's not overthink it. A welcome sequence is really just your elevator pitch. Most of us out here can walk up to a stranger and tell them what we do and why we do it and who we do it for. Well, there's your welcome sequence. Tell them who you are, what you do, why you do it, and why they care. And we can change the order, right? Maybe we want to put why they care and what it's going to do for them in the beginning, and then more about our background later on to add social proof and to kind of, prove that we know what we're talking about. But there's your welcome sequence. That's an easy 3 emails that most people should be able to write. And yeah, let's utilize AI. Take your elevator pitch, put it into AI, and ask it to create 3 emails, and then take that and put it in your voice.
Boom. All right. So we're not anti-AI here. And
No,
I do,
not at all.
yeah. And I do love that. I do, because it's like, people struggle with the blank page all the time. And this is where this really just kind of gets you off the blank page. Just realize that anything it's spitting out to you might be lying to you, right? Or it might not be in your voice. And, our pal Dave Jackson, who all 3 of us know, School of Podcasting, shout out to School of Podcasting. He's like, do you want to know the best prompt I have? And of course, everybody's like, yes. You're Dave Jackson. Tell us your best prompt. And he goes, it's make it better. So he'll get something and he'll just say, make this better. And he said 9 times out of 10, it's like absolutely better. And he says, again, you're adding yourself in the human loop. And I love that you went there. So this is incredible that you've learned all this stuff, but your batting average is not 1,000, right, Paul?
No.
So it, over, 26, 27, however many years throughout this thing. And let's stay on email here for a second. What are the mistakes that maybe you've made or that you see other people are making, or the people that you're working with? What are the mistakes that they're making that they need to avoid? Either they're making them right now, or you can tell them, hey, don't do this when you start, like creating, after they're creating these welcome sequences, or maybe it's too late to do that at this point. They're like, maybe they're doing something else with their email lists that they should be avoiding.
The biggest mistake I see people make when they're trying to grow their email list is that they don't ask for email. Let's go to anybody's website out there who spent hours making their front page this beautiful, great flowing thing that answers all the questions, has a nice hero image at the top and tells them what the problem is they're solving. And then at the very bottom in the footer is something that just says, sign up for my newsletter. I think that's the biggest mistake people are asking for, is they don't ask for the email and they're not giving a compelling reason why to sign up. I've audited so many people's email or websites, and that's exactly what happens. Is they don't ask for email. And then you can use tools like, if you go to that paulgowder.com/email tools, one of the tools I love is this thing called Grow that Mediavine put out, and it will put your opt-in automatically in WordPress. It will just insert it into your article and make it nice and pretty. And you can even do complicated things like making it show for different WordPress categories, different ones. Anyways, it's so easy now to get an email opt-in on your WordPress pages. Please do that. That's number 1. 2, let's talk about podcasters and TikTokers.
Please.
How many times have you heard on a podcast, the call to action is, hey, go like and subscribe us on iTunes, on Apple Podcast. Make sure over on Spotify, you click click whatever. And then on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button and make sure you click the bell icon. Oh my God, the litany of call to actions that we have on these podcasts is crazy, right? The call to action should be whatever it is, that offer we created that we're going to put on our website. That's your podcast call to action. Is in like the one I use on powwows.com is like, hey, are you a first time visitor? Are you nervous about going to your first powwow? Are you worried about what to bring, to do? Just head on over to powwows.com/powwow101. I'll give you a free email series that'll tell you everything you need to know before you go to your first powwow. That's a podcast call to action.
Okay. You know what? I'm glad these things are recorded and I don't have to sit here and scramble and write notes like crazy. Because, the number one problem, I'm raising my hand. Guilty as charged on castahead.net. Absolutely. And of course, I just went to powwows.com/powwows101. It redirects me to a spot on your website, which is fine because you're using redirects, which is absolutely smart. You're right about podcasts in terms of again, back to the rented land. Why would you send someone to and list 17 different podcast platforms that they might be able to, just have them go to one spot. And when they get to that spot, you're delivering what they want and they can choose where to go, right? If you say, hey, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and then name, one or two, it doesn't matter. No one's listening after the first slash or the first dot. So just tell them one place to land. I love that. I love that concept. It's why we are big fans of Podpage and why we just say, hey, if you want to go to our podcast, here's where it is, right? And if things, and for those that are just listening, because we do repurpose this into an audio podcast, we're popping the stuff up on the screen, and all of these things that Paul is talking about are in the show notes below. So if you want to, go to the email tools that Paul's talking about, that he's mentioning, all of these links are on there. So if everybody right now is like, what did he say? I'm trying to write these stuff down. We've got it all in the show notes. All the URLs are everywhere and all the tubes. Maybe not in Substack yet, Jim, because we haven't figured out how to tuck that stuff there. But we will, ladies and gentlemen. And God, I'm getting tons of stuff already. This has already been tremendously valuable. And for those of you who are on Amazon, and we've got a few people on Amazon, and we also do have our friend over here, Sue Ann Babbitts, who says, "Right Mix for Business" by Sue Ann. Great show, guys. Thanks. Great to see you, Sue Ann.
We've got Mitch Jackson watching from Substack. Dr. Hicks is there. We've got Rocco Radio Sports and Marco Novo. And I will say, Rocco Sports love the funnel pounded with rocket emojis. That's the line of all lines right there.
Yes.
Yeah, stick around. I got more knucklehead lines for you. Yeah, Paul, man, this is go, please.
I was going to say, I want to go back to a couple of mistakes too.
Please,
before we get too far further. Here's two stories that have happened to me where I feel like I messed up. One of them, I kind of had a backup, so it was okay. But the first one, when I had the powwows.com podcast in the early days, gosh, I don't remember. This is maybe 6-8 years ago when Facebook had podcasts and Facebook had a podcast player. It was fantastic. I did nothing for my podcast except record it. And because I had a big Facebook page, Facebook would take my podcast and send it out. I was getting 15 to 20,000 downloads per episode, doing nothing, right? Facebook doesn't have a podcast player anymore.
Nope.
I lost all of those downloads and was never able to recover anywhere close to that many downloads ever again. And I didn't do a good job of making the call to action, getting them somewhere else other than Facebook. Another one, this happened last November at a Facebook group where we let people buy, sell, trade different types of Native American regalia or craft pieces or whatever. We had 85,000 people in that Facebook group, and Facebook removed it overnight. Gone. It's non-appealable. The whole thing's lost. Now, I had been making one of the questions to join the Facebook group, hey, if you want to subscribe to our email list, give me your email. And I have a tool that goes in and grabs those automatically, puts them into my kit. So I did have a bunch of the people from there. But again, we don't know what these social networks are going to do.
Right.
Please don't build your whole business on a social network without having your email. There's only two things that we can control right now that we can own, and that's our RSS feed for our podcast and our email list. So make sure you grow both of those and control them.
God, that's so good. That's so good. And I'm glad that you were vulnerable there in sharing that. Yeah, thanks, Zuckerberg. It's so true. And I think right now there's a real battle. I don't know if battle's probably not the right word, but there's a lot of people that are, standing on a hill and talking about RSS feeds, and it's for this reason, right? So YouTube is a fantastic platform and we love it. And, there is, some revenue sharing and AdSense, and there's a lot of community things that you can do to build there. And obviously you've built, you got a silver plaque behind you and you're, above your left shoulder. And so that's all well and good, but it still is another platform that you don't necessarily own. And so I think if you kind of keep that mindset, build, I'm going to use a biblical reference, a wise man built his house upon the rock, and the foolish man built his house upon the sand. And I think that we have to keep all of that in mind, and being able to build that content on that rock, on that .com or .whatever that you've got, and your RSS feed, your podcast is important. And so if you say, "Hey, I just launched a podcast on YouTube," and how much sand is in that foundation, right? We don't know, and I think it's important.
Yeah, we have no idea.
Yeah. Whew. So okay, here's a little this is the Chris gets free consultation part of the show. No, this has been, you're getting free consultation for everybody who's doing it. And for those of you who are watching, go to paulgowder.com. The other thing is paulgowder.com/email tools. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, email tools as well. But the other thing I noticed with a lot of the content that you're doing is you do giveaways. Right? So you get items to do giveaways, and you've got a ton of partners that you work with there. So I wanted to talk about your relationships with companies and brands as a part of what you do, because I that's not a small thing. You're focused on that community. So let's talk about how you work with brands, how you make decisions with brands that you're either approached by or that you're approaching, and maybe some how you sort of orchestrate your giveaways in serving in your community in that way.
So I actually have a big box. I did a live unboxing last night of the prizes from our latest giveaway. And when I talk about giveaways, a lot of people, look at this. A lot of people talk about how giveaways are not effective. Please focus. There we go.
There we go.
These things are gorgeous.
Oh man, Jim, you'd look good with those hanging from your lobes. No?
So I'll give a free plug. This is 8th generation. A lot of people say that giveaways aren't effective, and I think one of the biggest failure points of people not having effective giveaways is the prize. And so you have to pick a prize that relates to your audience. Please don't give away, just like an iPad or a Disney gift card, right? Those things aren't going to work, as everybody in the world's going to want them, and they're not necessarily your audience. And if you're going to use giveaways to grow your audience, it needs to be your audience and not everybody's audience. So I work with a few brands. I work with 8th Generation, who's fantastic. They have an office up in Seattle. They actually invited us up. We got to go tour their factory and their office a couple of years ago. It was really, really cool. And they've been partners with us for a long time. They do blankets as well as jewelry and other things. They're all designed and made by Native. It's a Native-owned company, so it's a really cool group to work with. And we have a few other partners too. And that makes the giveaways really something special on our website, because we do have prizes that resonate with our audience. And so for me, I use giveaways to grow our email list, but also to engage our existing audience and kind of reward them. But also part of the business model of powells.com is advertising. That's one of our biggest revenue sources, is getting people to our website, getting more traffic. More traffic means more ads, which means more revenue. So we use the giveaway too to, once we get you on our email list, we're going to drive you back to the website. And the giveaway is a great way to keep generating traffic. And you talk about redirects. I use the same URL every month that we do a giveaway. It's powells.com/win. Really easy. And so I just change whatever on the back end, whatever this month's giveaway is.
Smart.
So right now we're running a giveaway for kicking off Powwow season and celebrating the 2025 Powwow season. And so you go to powells.com/win and you can enter there. It's really, really cool, effective. For podcasters, one of the cool little twists I do for podcasts or for live shows like this, I use a piece of software called Viral Suite. It lets me upload a spreadsheet of like random numbers. And so on a podcast episode, I will give out a code of numbers or letters, and only the people listening or watching that show get that code, and it gives you an extra 10 or 20 entries into that giveaway. It's a great way to get your viewers and your listeners back to your giveaway because it feels a little more exclusive, and you can hide them on the website. You can do other things. I give one to 8th Generation. They hide it on their website as well. So it's a really cool way to, again, make it a little more fun, but also get your podcast and video listeners back to your giveaway.
Oh, that's pro tip right there. I mean, viralsweep.com and the integration. I mean, I'm not going to be able to read all these integrations that it has.
Yeah,
this is
really good
incredible. Incredible. That's a massive pro tip. Good stuff. Jim, I know you had a question you wanted to ask. I'm sorry I skipped over you on that one. I talk too much. I'm sorry. I'm going to shut up here for a minute.
You ask good questions, Chris, and I've been keeping up with our Substack fans. We've got a nice showing over there for really just not even really announced in advance sort of thing. We just decided, hey, let's give it a try. But
cool.
One of the things Paul, that we've also talked about, it's like you run Facebook ads, obviously, like Chris talked about earlier, It's been a challenge, but where do you see, like, when you're first starting out, like how, I mean, I guess really, right, it's about the email, but what if I feel like, well, I don't really know what I should be, giving to people? Like, how is this making me money, or am I just sharing information for the sake of sharing information?
That can be a struggle, right? So let's back up a little bit further. Whether it's email or social media, let's make sure we have our business plan and our revenue source figured out. So again, for me, it's on powells.com, it's driving traffic is where we're going to make our money. And we also have some digital sales. We have our live streams. All that other stuff feeds into that as well. But once you kind of have that email, I hear some email experts say for every dollar you spend, you can get 3 to 5 back. So if you can, if you want to run a Facebook ad and collect leads that way, you can do that. I find one of the, like, for growing paulgowder.com, my coaching business, I think one of the best ways that I've found so far is a couple of things. One, Kit has a recommendation network, which is really, really cool. It's free to use. But 2 is I just show up and give value in different places. I'm very active in a few marketing online entrepreneur Facebook groups. And I'm not in there going, hey, please go to paulgowder.com/email tools and sign up for I'm in there answering questions and talking about how I use email. And then you'll organically get people that will go, you do what now? Tell me how you did that. And so those will lead to other conversations that may lead to getting clients. But I know there's lots of people that talk about that, spend part of your day going and answering questions and being active on social. That's going to lead to growing your email list, growing your business. And it's also a good way too of figuring out what value you actually bring is just being out there, and you'll start to figure out what makes you different, what your different background is, because if you say something in a Facebook group and it's not good, you'll hear about it. If it's good, you'll hear about it too, right? It's instant feedback. Some of these Facebook groups are brutal, right? So
true.
Yeah. So I love doing that. It's really, really fun. And you find out really quickly what it is that you bring to the table.
Exactly. And it's kind of a way to go through those reps of helping people online too, right? And not only that, but it's just being a good human being, right? I just it's helping people and going through the motions. And you're right. Like, you're not going in there intentionally going, okay, I'm going into this group, I'm going to answer a bunch of people's questions so that I can get at least X amount of email subscribers out of it. Like, there's no intention of doing that. You're going and you see somebody's got a problem, and you're like, I had that problem 7 years ago when I did this certain thing with my email. So I'm going to give this person a tip because 7 years ago, somebody else gave you a tip, right? And I think that's it. It's paying it forward. It's whatever crazy knucklehead thing that I can think of, like rising tide lifts all ships, whatever. But speaking of the rising tide, you brought your fan club here, and we gotta recognize Sean Robertson.
Hey, Sean.
Is it Roberson or Robertson? I always get names wrong. But Sean, what is up? Thanks for joining us over on Facebook. And then Kira has some wonderful things to say. Kira says, I think Paul has such a great system of testing things on organic and paid social and then optimizing what works. Yeah, I can't believe the amount of value that you bring to Paul Gowder's community as well as the Powwows community. And this has absolutely flown by. Like the best shows are the ones that I'm like, dang it, I gotta end this thing. But before we end, Paul, I definitely want to roll this over to you to give sort of the last words and encouraging our audience. I want to encourage anybody here before I give the mic over here to Paul, go to paulgowder.com. And check out what he's got going on, and paulgowder.com/podcast as well. Paul has an email that will help you, or a paid email that will help you as well. That link is in the show notes. It's powwows.dealcasters.live. That's something that Paul has allowed us to share here on this as well. And of course, the email tools, which is paulgowder.com/email tools. Paul, I'll roll it over to you as our man Rich Graham says, you always bring it. So, and of course, Sean says, the only reason I have an email list is because of Paul. So I'll just roll it over to you, Paul. Let the people know what they should be thinking about going forward, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean and Kira, for being here. I appreciate that. So starting email, starting community, it can be very daunting, whether you have 5 people on your list or 10 or 100. It's continue to be community first focus. Serve your audience. Be present, be part of the audience. The same thing I was talking about with showing up in Facebook groups and giving value. Be in your own community, adding value and answering questions and doing those things. It is slow, and sometimes it takes a long time to see any real growth. But say you have 10 people on your list. If you had 10 people in your living room and you got to talk to them directly, you'd be pretty excited, right? So let's not get overshadowed by big numbers and thinking some of these vanity metrics you have to be successful. Having 10 people on your list can be super effective depending on what your business model is. So start just adding value, be community first focused, and it will go from there.
Outstanding words, Paul. Thank you for joining us. And, everybody, you just got to remember creating a community and creating a great email list, it ain't as hard as you think.